And welcome back. Joining us now is candidate for the 8th City Council District, Diana Ayala. We welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
How's the campaign going?
It's going well. It's going well. And people are being really receptive of our message. We're knocking on many doors, making a bunch of calls. So we're really busy.
So give us a little bit about yourself. Who is Diana Ayala?
Well, it all started in 1973.
Take me back there, right?
Actually, I was born in Puerto Rico. I was raised in the Lower East Side. My mom moved us to New York when I was 5 years old. I am the second oldest of 8 children, raised by a single mother until I was about 12 years old. I was raised in public housing after coming out of public shelter in the Lower East Side, right on Houston and Columbia. A fire in one of the residential buildings that we lived in forced us into shelter, and then we were lucky enough to get an apartment in public housing where I lived until I was 17. I actually moved out of the Lower East Side right after a series of very, unfortunate circumstances. I was a teenage parent. I had my son when I was 16. I lost his father when I was 3 months pregnant to gun violence and ended up in shelter myself before relocating here to the Bronx, actually. And I lived in Highbridge, went to school at Bronx Community College, and went to school here at Lehman.
So you've got a good Bronx background.
So I've been around for, yeah.
Exactly. So, and you've also been the Deputy Chief of Staff to
And I've been the
Speaker.
Deputy Chief of Staff. So I actually started working for the Speaker 11 years ago, had no political experience whatsoever, didn't even know who my representatives were at the time. And she said, I've seen you in action in this community. I see how you resonate with the constituents and how people, respond to you as a person. And I think that you get the issues. And so it doesn't matter that you're not politically, connected or, as politically astute as you think that you should be. I think that you're perfect for this job. And so I accepted a position in constituent services for 7 years. I did that. And then 4 years ago was promoted to Deputy Chief of Staff.
So talk to me about the district now, because obviously you know it very well.
Yes.
What do you find to be some of the biggest challenges that you have faced in the district?
Always is housing. Housing continues to be a challenge for us. In both parts of the district, we have similarities, but we also have quite, significant differences. In the East Harlem part of the district, for instance, we're going through an upzoning process right now. We're rapidly gentrifying. We're seeing some of the effects of that already creeping into the South Bronx part of the district, but not as aggressively as in the East Harlem part of the district. So how do we, rezone in a manner that is responsible and that is beneficial to the community is a conversation that I've been having with our constituents, and it's actually been a very long process. Gun violence continues to plague our communities. It's something that's really important to me as a person who has been personally affected by gun violence. It's something that, I was at a funeral last year, and it was very reminiscent of, a funeral that I was in, almost 30 years ago. And so nothing has changed. And so those are some of the issues that I think are really important to me. They're issues that are important to the, to the constituents that I, would love to represent. Mm-hmm. And so I would like to do a lot of work around those areas.
Hitting the campaign trail, going door to door, obviously you're touching base with a lot of people. What are you hearing out there?
Housing. I do a lot of door knocking in public housing because we happen to have one of the largest public housing stocks, and so a lot of my time is spent in public housing. And obviously the conditions, the mold, the lack of security, the broken doors, people not feeling safe in their own units. The rents are going up, but the quality of life continues to deteriorate. It's always number one on the list of concerns that I'm hearing.
And so as you're running right now, you've received the endorsement from the borough president, but not from the Bronx Dems. How are you feeling about that?
I feel fine. I think we've made peace with that. We're still friends, and I speak to county all of the time, and I'm really excited about the borough president's endorsement. He's actually been out, doing door knocking with me, and he's quite a celebrity, and so I'm very grateful for his endorsement, and very proud to partner with him in this endeavor.
What do you think is going to make the difference for you going forward in this election in the minds of voters?
I think that I have the advantage of having been in this position already for the last, in a position that allows me a lot of visibility and a lot of access to services and bringing in resources to this district for the last 11 years. And I think that makes a difference for people because they know me, they know that they can count on me, they know that I've been reliable, they know I've been present, and they know that I deliver. And so I think that that's going to really make a difference.
Where do you see things happening in the next couple of years if you're elected?
I mean, again, the rezoning and the gentrification issues are going to be heavily, part of the conversations that we're going to be having for the next few years, specifically here in the Bronx, because it's not something, it's new to us, and so I think that will absorb a lot of time.
When you talk about gentrification, obviously a lot of people see it. How do you stop it?
I don't think that you can. Like, having come from the Lower East Side, you don't stop it. I think that you slow it down, but I think that we've gotten smarter, and I think that communities can come together to to make decisions that don't necessarily stop it, but benefit from it, right? And so we're in East Harlem, for instance, we had the East Harlem Neighborhood Plan, and so we had community residents come together and say, okay, if this is going to happen, what would you like to see come out of this plan, right? So more protections for our businesses is an issue, right? How do we ensure that we're not overcrowding our school systems is something that we want to have a conversation about. How do we bring in more jobs for our young people? So there are certain benefits that come, from these processes, but we have to, as a community, have some input.
East Harlem, Bronx, two separate places, but yet and still there's
similar.
a lot of
Similarities.
What do you find to be the similarities?
A lot of similarities. The population is the same. We, in both parts, again, we're very heavily public housing developments. People have the same issues. Lack of jobs, gun violence. I mean, it's almost the mirror images of each other. It's really funny because we're divided by water, but yet we're very similar in nature.
And so when you talk about opportunity, obviously that's something a lot of people worried about because the job situation is very critical these days, and you got a lot of great development that's going on across the city, but then the question is, where are we going to work? How do we answer that question?
So we have to start training, first of all, we have to start looking at those development opportunities as opportunities also for employment, and how do we build green, right? Green infrastructure, and how do we start training and educating our, young people and preparing them for these jobs, because there is going to be a lot of opportunity for employment coming up. If we're getting, these box stores, which we all hate, but they come in, and okay, fine, how do we leverage some opportunities for, community jobs? So
if elected, obviously you have to work with a bunch of different city council people. You have very great relationship as the deputy staff for the speaker. How do you feel that's going to be able to leverage with your relationship with fellow council members?
I think it only strengthens it. I think we've spent the last 11, close to 12 years building on those relationships, and I think that there's a lot of respect amongst the colleagues, and I think that I welcome their support and their guidance in helping me help to shape this constituency.
You get the final word. Talk to your voters. What do you want them to know?
I want you to know that I'm a regular person. I'm a mom. I am a grandmother. I am a daughter. I have the same struggles. When your children are hungry, my children are hungry. When you're afraid, I'm afraid. When when you're concerned about whether or not you're going to be able to live in your community, I'm also concerned about whether or not my family is going to be able to live in this community. So I'm not very different from the constituents that I look to represent, and I hope that they see that in me, because I think that it brings a different perspective to politics. I think it brings a perspective of a person that has been there, has been in the grinds, and has had to fight to survive. And so it allows me a different perspective on how we do policy and how we appropriate funding.
Diana Ayala, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, and best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If elected, you got to come back.
Yes, I will. I promise.
Then. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Coming right back right after this.